So we have anywhere between 10 and 25 brands that are all clean, conscious beauty brands, all small, like mine. And we put together sort of curated shelves for different retailers. I want to build something that I feel like is a solid, strong, clear, sustainable brand. Most beauty packaging is not recyclable or sustainable. People don't realize pumps are bad. Pumps are really hard to recycle. Conscious beauty it's about clean formulas, and to us that means EU standard because that's way more rigorous than the US. But it also means that you're sustainably minded, that you give back to the community, that you are, as I mentioned before, vegan, cruelty-free, or fair trade minded. You know, it's beyond just your actual formulations.
Hey everyone, welcome to Business Unchained, where entrepreneurs and business owners come together to power up on their journey to greatness.
Bobby Masha is the founder and CEO of Greenridge Wealth Planning. All opinions expressed by Bobby and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinion of Greenridge Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
So tell me about the pop-up. What does that usually look like?
So we have anywhere between 10 and 25 brands that are all clean, conscious beauty brands, all small, like mine. And we put together sort of curated shelves for different retailers. So it's been great because before this, I stupidly was doing my own stores where I'm like, I can't find people to really work, so I'm working.
Terrible. Yeah.
Bad idea. I did 4 of those before I finally wised up and realized, wait a minute, I could be in other people's stores. I don't have to be doing this myself. So we now have 6. I just came from Miami last night. So we had a launch party there at a store in Wynwood. Have you guys been down to that area?
To Miami?
To Wynwood?
Not Wynwood, no.
Oh my God. It is crazy. Like it's definitely popping, as the kids would say. It's very young.
I can't even keep track of what the kids say these days.
Yeah, I know, right? It's very young. Everything is graffitied. All the buildings are graffitied. I mean, there's a steel case and it's got shit all over it. You know, it's an interesting 10 blocks. Awesome food. Like the food
Miami's got a great vibe.
Incredible. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing.
When you get into the like silicone territory where you feel like everybody is perfect and you know, I'm speaking for myself. I feel like I don't fit.
Oh, I definitely don't fit. No, you know, it's interesting. I just read an article about how all these, especially in Miami, youngsters in their 20s are having their teeth done, having veneers put on because they want like perfection. And so many of them are getting screwed up because they shave them down and then they don't fit right and then they fall off and all these problems. And I'm like,
every time I think of veneers, I think of
Tom Cruise.
No, I think of what the hell's the name of the movie? Oh my God, I'm having a brain fart. When he puts on the veneers and he looks like Mr. Ed, he's got these big teeth. Something About Mary.
Oh, yeah.
There's Something About Mary.
Yeah. Yeah. So apparently that's a whole thing. They do the Brazilian butt, lifts. Now they're doing the veneers. And then of course they start doing, that's a whole skincare injectable stuff. They start now like when they're like 20, getting all this stuff done. And it's crazy.
It's insane. So I have a daughter. She's the youngest of the group. She's 8 years old.
Oh, young.
And she is like, she'll throw on YouTube TV.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a phone. We won't give her a phone, but all her friends have technology devices that they go on. And the thing is beauty products. So her big ask from me was, Dad, can you take me to Ulta? And it was,
Does she want Drunk Elephant? Is that her thing? You don't know?
I said to her, what are we doing here? Like, no, I'm not taking you to Ulta. She goes, come on, please. And we were eating swordfish. She doesn't like fish. So I said, I'll tell you what, you eat 5 pieces of swordfish and I'll give you $50 to go to Ulta, but you have to eat 5 pieces of sushi and of swordfish. And for every piece thereafter, I'll give you an extra $10.
Ooh.
So she ate 5 pieces. She's like, I'm out. I have money I've been saving for grandma. I'll use that.
Do you know what she bought? I'm curious.
Sol de Janeiro, milk something or other.
Yep.
I don't remember the brand, but she's walking around and she's, the woman says, can I help you? And she says, I'm looking for this and I'm looking for that. And the woman says, listen, you don't want to ruin your skin.
Yeah. I'm glad she said that because a lot of times they don't.
She's like, you should take this hydrating.
Yeah.
The hydrating thing is good.
Yeah.
You could take this, this scent thing that you want to spray on. It's kind of like a perfume, but it's not really a perfume. That'll work for you.
Yeah.
At most, a little bit of blush, but like that's for special occasions. Yeah. You don't want to ruin your skin. All of these girls on TikTok, you shouldn't follow them. I mean, she started to go into a little bit with me.
Well, they're getting in a lot of trouble. That's why. And I'm glad they're doing that because apparently these girls are going into Sephora and Ulta and buying stuff with retinols, with all sorts of stuff that is not good when you're that age to be putting on your skin. So they've gotten a lot of flack, and I think they've had to sort of overcorrect to deal with it, which I'm glad to hear they are. There's actually a brand in the pop-up I'm going to at Petal and Hive that's called Good For You Girls. I'm going to ask the founder. I'm going to see her on Saturday. I'm going to ask her for a set of products to send to your daughter. It's a teen skincare line.
Okay.
So that is all for tweens and teens. Now she's a little young, but it's safe. So at least that is the right way to get. When I was growing up, again, I'm aging myself as my, 57-year-old, but my mom took me to the Clinique counter, and that was what we did. And then they type you, and they have the white coats, and they give you and it's all hypoallergenic products, and it was all good. And that sort of was my entry. And that's what happened when it was my age. But now there's sort of Clinique is old, and there's not really a replacement brand that does that. So
I couldn't believe how many brands were in the Ulta, and I'd taken her to Sephora one other time.
It's crazy.
And I couldn't even keep track.
It's crazy. I know.
So she was my tour guide for that because I had no idea what to bring her or what she was looking for or what she should even have. And then at the end I said, we bought a bunch of the stuff. The woman gave me an indication of what it was. I understand that you need this for shows because she has to wear makeup for shows and stuff like that. I said, but when we get home, you're going to bring the bag to mom, and mom is going to approve everything.
Good.
Just because I bought it doesn't mean that I approve of it. And if it's got to go back, that's the deal. And she said, okay, that's the deal. Fair.
Okay, that's good. No, I think it's great that you're at least aware of what's going on because, sometimes these parents have no idea and their kids are putting all this stuff on their face and it's really not good.
It's no bueno. So these pop-up stores, they pop up, obviously. You put them together. And is there a duration that you usually keep them up for? Do you take them down afterward? Is it now like real estate that you are leasing for a certain period of time? How does that work for you? Okay.
So what I used to do is have our own store, and it would be anywhere from 3 months. And then the Palm Springs one was 8 months because that's the season for Palm Springs. But after I wised up and decided, okay, I need to go in other people's stores, I do 3-month contracts within the ability to extend because it's all an experiment right now. Mm-hmm. The store in Brooklyn is called Remedies Herb Shop. It's owned by this amazing woman, Cheryl. She's an herbalist. And like, you have anything going on, I can't sleep. Here you go. I have allergies. I got the thing, and it's all natural.
It's like an old school apothecary.
It's like an old school apothecary. And so our products are great because they're all clean and they kind of fit in with that. And it sort of extends what she can offer her customers, but very different than, say, our pop-up in Palm Springs, which is a vitamin infusion. What do you call it? A vitamin infusion center? I don't know. But people in Palm Springs.
So it's like an IV bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's very local. So people will go in for their banana bag hangover or their beauty glow. And I was in there. They're so lovely in there. And they were so excited to get our stuff because they're like, we have a captive audience. People are sitting there for 45 minutes getting their infusion. And wouldn't it be great if they could have a face mask or a little foot treatment? And so, we brought a bunch of products that made sense. And I was in there the other day, and there was this woman who clearly had a lot of work done. And she walks in and she starts haranguing this esthetician for, I need some stuff. And she's like, well, what do you need? And she's like, some shots. Well, what kind of shots? I don't know. What do you got? Just give me some stuff. And then, so the woman ends up saying, well, here, I got this. And she goes, give me two of all of those. She said, I don't think I can do that. That's not really the way it works. And she's like, why not? So it was very interesting. I mean, clearly she's addicted and maybe
That's-
not such a good
yeah.
way. But a very different experience in that store. People go in because they are wellness oriented. They want stuff that's pretty clean, right?
Mhm.
And they have money. They don't care about dropping $300-400 on an infusion that might make them feel better for a couple days.
For them, they're doing the right thing for their longevity.
Yeah,
Right. That's the sale today is longevity.
That's the sale, whether it works or not. Who knows? But why not? So that's very different than the herb shop. Wellness, they're both wellness, but very different approaches. And then we're in a clean beauty store. That's the Petal and Hive store. Then we're in the one in Miami is a chakra fragrance store.
Okay.
So it's all about balancing your chakras. They do aura readings.
So it's definitely a multi-faceted approach.
So the thing that I'm sort of trying to figure out, and then we have one in Knoxville, which is a salon.
Okay.
That one's opening in October. And then we have a modern mercantile in Crozet, Virginia, opening in October, also very different. So I'm starting to see okay, which.
So how are you finding these places?
It's all word of mouth, literally. And I opened the first one, and then we had a brand that was opening the Miami store, so that was a no-brainer. But then the Palm Springs one, he had come into the store when we actually had a Palm Springs store and talked to me and said, I want some products. And so that was sort of a no-brainer. And then everything has been word of mouth. And now I've got I don't have enough bandwidth to open all the stores. That's my issue, because now I've got people calling me going, I know of this amazing store in Rhode Island. And I'm like, okay, just because I also want to see what format works, right? What it might turn out that the vitamin fusion thing is genius.
Right. You don't want to bleed all your efforts into a category that
Yeah.
ultimately isn't going to work for you long term.
Right. And if it turns out, it's a little bit like what you guys do, stocks, diversification. You want to see what things are going to pop and work, although you probably have a little more data than I do. But, in the sense of the one like at Petal and Hive, I like her. I like that one because the owner is a cosmetic chemist, so she really understands what we're doing and the ingredients. She can talk to it, but she already has a ton of clean beauty products. So we might go in there thinking it's a great fit and find out that we don't really sell that much because she's already got a store stocked with stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's you don't know. Or it could be the opposite. We bring some newness to her customers. She understands it, so can sell it. So that's what I'm sort of playing around with is there's a lot of levers to pull and which ones are going to be the ones that take off.
Right. And I'm sure personality has a lot to do with it, whether or not they're very, fun and outgoing and engaging with their clientele or their customers, or the ones that are just kind of, all right, you have an appointment, come sit down, here you're in for what you have. And it's just on a shelf on their way out. And they have to identify that they want it or are interested in it. Exactly.
So I look for retailers that have an owner that's working in the store, frankly. Yeah. Small businesses, right? But someone who's vested and invested in what they're doing and in the store, because they're much more sales oriented.
Yeah.
And much more engaged in what exactly it is that they're putting in their store. Where the salespeople, a lot of times you train them and they kind of go, uh-huh. Even our own, we hired 2 salespeople down at the store in Miami because we have 25 brands. It's a lot. I was down there training one of them yesterday, and she's, oh, I didn't know that it did. They don't really bother to do their own research.
They have minimal vested interest. Maybe they'll get a little commission or something off of the sale, but that's about it.
Yeah. So it's a whole different mindset. So I want to partner with, retailers that have founders who are in it, engaged, get it.
What have you learned so far? It sounds like you're in an early stage of getting into these different pop-up shops. Obviously, you learn that your own brick and mortar is a little bit of a tougher carry, because finding help and stocking the store and making sure you have enough customers coming through to be a viable business model for yourself. What are some of the things that you've learned over this?
Our own stores were great from a business perspective. The problem was I would try to get the other founders to do a store because it's not scalable if I'm the one doing them all.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone was like, no, thank you. I'll put my products in the store, but I don't want to actually open a store. So I couldn't get anyone else to do it.
Okay.
The other issue with doing that is, and this is true for any store, is the help that you get these days. So when I opened the first store we did, it's just April 2022. It was right after I was coming out of my cancer, chemo and all that. We did our first store in San Francisco, and I hired 8 USF interns, all from their marketing department. And we had a manager of the store who was really new clean beauty. But the interns are like 20-year-old, not that there's anything wrong with a 20-year-old doing this if they care about it, right? But, they were great at setting up our TikTok, giving me content for Instagram, but they did not want to or understand how to sell the products.
Now, have you been doing anything with like micro influencers or anything like that?
Yeah, we do a lot. So at each store, we'll do an opening where we invite tons of influencers. We'll invite local press. I always get local press. I always get media, so we try to make it a thing to get a little bit of boost because that really helps everyone. It helps the store. The more the store feels like this concept is helping their own business, the more they're invested in making it work, which means it's good for everybody, right? So
if we take just a couple steps back, right? You were the CEO of a major advertising agency.
Yeah.
And you left because of probably a number of reasons. I don't know if cancer was one of the reasons at that point.
That was, I left well before the cancer.
But one of the things that you had said was ageism.
Oh yeah,
was the driving purpose behind you getting into what you're doing now. Can you put a little bit more context around that for us so we can understand that?
I wouldn't say it's the driving purpose actually at all. It was more a reality of the corporate world, especially in advertising. Advertising is a very young industry. When you're 40-ish, you start to feel a little out of it. And then when you're 50, you're like the oldest one in the room, pretty much. Your clients are peers, and then it's worse if you're creative, I think, because, you're expected to have your finger on the pulse of everything cultural. And, as we were talking about, our kids know a lot of stuff that we don't know in terms of like, even just like, memes and, terms and like things people say. It's hard to stay on top of that when you're like a 50-something-year-old, So it's tough when you're older. And then there's all the
My kids were sitting at the table last night and they were talking about some meme and I was so clueless. Like, what do you guys, Dad, you don't know what this is? I'm
right.
Like, no, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, because you're doing other things. Like they're on TikTok all day. So, and then also just even staying on top of all the social media options. I mean, my kids are not huge. I have 23-year-old and 21-year-old. They're not huge on Instagram. They hate Facebook. They sort of like TikTok, but they get what it is. It's just, mindless entertainment you scroll through. What they actually spend a lot more time on is Discord and Snapchat.
Snapchat's a big one, yeah.
Which I'm not.
I don't even know what Discord is.
I am on Discord.
Luch, are we on Discord? No, we're not on Discord.
I believe, I could be wrong. Again, this is my old brain processing what I'm trying to understand. I think it kind of started for gamers as a way for gamers to communicate.
Okay.
My son is a big gamer. He sort of stopped doing it, but for a long time, several years, he was almost professionally ranked Rocket League player. He's won quite a bit of money playing Rocket League.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the one with the car with the ball that it's
Correct.
Almost like soccer.
It's like soccer, but with the cars.
Car. Yeah.
And okay,
I've played that. That's a lot of fun.
But it's very fast. Your reflexes are like this. But he went to Indiana University, which is where I went, but he started in person. And then when COVID hit, he came home because they shut down. And then he never went back in person because then I got cancer. He wanted to stay home. And so he was playing Rocket League and he ended up being like the captain of the Indiana team. Did you know they have scholarships for gamers now?
I had no idea. No.
It's become like a sport where they actually recruit. There's a school, I think it's in Minneapolis, that's become really like, I don't know, I could be wrong about that. It's somewhere up there. Where they win a lot of tournaments because they actively recruit gamers and give them scholarships to come, play for their team. So anyway, so my son was like the captain of the Rocket League team at Indiana, and they had like 4 or 5 guys on it, and they played tournaments on Twitch, ESPN.
I mean, it's big. I know there's big money on it. My son, my 2 boys were into Fortnite.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
there's a
would
lot more
have-
money in Fortnite. Rocket League is still small, but yes.
But they would have Fortnite, some other video. It was not even like a live game. It was a video of other gamers playing with like tricks and tips. And they would be playing Fortnite on one screen and watching on the other screen. And I'm like, I can't even pay attention to the game. Never mind
Yes.
two things at the same time. That's a really fast moving game.
That's a whole thing they do. And he would do that like for hours. Both he would watch and then he would also do it when he was playing, right? It's also a way a lot of these gamers monetize what they do because they put them on YouTube, and if you get enough followers, then you're monetizing it that way. But yeah, it's like a whole thing. So anyway,
so advertising's changed a lot, you know, and from a sense of where you were when you were.
Bring us back to thank you. It's like, otherwise we'll go off on these. But you're right. Like so anyway, the point being, if you don't know about like the latest, greatest technology and all this stuff going on, you start to feel like you're not in touch from a marketing perspective because the marketing world has changed dramatically and it changes constantly. And so it's very easy to feel out of it when you're working in advertising because these days it used to be we had a 5-year business plan. Who does that anymore? Now it's like a 5-month business plan and then it changes. And then it's like a dramatically different thing. So it's just changing so fast. So I had gotten to the point in advertising where, I mean, I was the CEO. I didn't feel there was anything else for me to do beyond that. I didn't have any aspirations to be the CEO of a holding company or anything like that. Not that I could have even done that anyway, but I just felt like my job had become really bureaucratic. You know, I got into advertising because I like to problem solve and use creativity as a business tool.
Yeah, that's not a CEO's role.
It's not a CEO's role. I'd gotten really removed from clients. There were a couple clients that would kind of pull me in and I loved it. And then I'd become a little like, you know, I wanted to go play.
Yeah.
But most of the time I was dealing with, we had a big public lawsuit. I was dealing with legal, HR issues, which were a lot. And we, 600 people in the New York office. There's always something.
Yeah.
Financial meetings. Our agency was owned by WPP, largest holding company for agencies. So they're very hands-on, which means you have to do a lot of financial meetings practically weekly, if not more. And that's not my thing.
No, you're running a business as opposed to, playing in your trade.
Yeah. So I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm not having fun. And again, I feel like it's time. The industry is now moved into a different place. It's very analytical. My son is a data scientist and works in advertising now, which is great. But
How old were your boys at the time when you left corporate world?
It was 2018. So let's see.
6 years ago. So
yeah, he was 17 and my daughter was 14, and he did not want to go into advertising. I had tried he was really good at it. we would drive up to the Berkshires on Fridays and he would hear us talking about challenges at work, whatever, campaign this. My husband would talk about, we're trying to help Cadillac, come up with a new thing. And literally he would chime in from the back, guys, I got the idea. Okay, Billy, what's the idea? Cadillac, it's yours. It's life. Damn, that's pretty good. We're going to present that. That's actually makes sense. And he's like, yeah, because it's about your sense of accomplishment and you deserve it because you've worked for it. And, and I'm like, he's really good. Like, that's the kind of thinking that like you'd pay a creative guy to do. So we always said, Billy, you got to go in advertising. And he was like, no, it's horrible. And then when he was 15, when I was working at J. Walter Thompson, we dragged him to Cannes, which is the big
film festival.
There's an advertising festival.
Okay.
That's like the film festival. It's a Cannes Lion, and it's sort of the Oscars for advertising, which I know is kind of a joke, right? And I dragged him there thinking maybe it'll inspire him and he'll see all this amazing creative and he'll think, oh, maybe this is something I want to do. And we're at dinner with a bunch of the J. Walter Thompson people, and one of them turned to him and was like, Billy, like, this must be amazing for you. What do you think? And he was like, oh, you people are pathetic. I can't believe you're giving awards for like a Burger King ad. I mean, come on. And he just thought it was all very comical. Now as he's older, he was like, I can't believe I went to Cannes.
Yeah.
And that, like, I laughed at it. I'm like, yeah, and you're probably not going to go again for 20 years.
Well,
but
it's
hey,
easy to be critical when you're a teenager. You know?
Yeah. So that was kind of hit. But he came around. He did an internship last summer and absolutely fell in love. And now he loves what he's doing. And I think being a data science is perfect because that's what you want to be in that business, because you get to kind of go in and figure it out. Because now everyone can be a creative, right? And this is the beauty of now me with transitioning to my own business is you don't really need to hire loads of people. I mean, I can use CapCut and cut my own videos. I can shoot my own content. I can post, everything myself. I use an app called Marky to do my social scheduling. I mean, everything is...
You're your own client now.
Yeah, in the best and worst way. Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about the transition. You leave corporate, and what was the first thing that went through your mind, and how did you get into, I guess, the space that you're into now?
So when I left, I started doing consulting with small businesses because I wanted to get back to what I loved, which is helping grow businesses. And I felt like there's no better way to do that than working with small businesses, because when you would recommend changes, or we'd say, hey, this is how we think you should talk about your value proposition. And literally the next day you'd open up their website and you'd see they'd already changed it. So I loved how immediate it was. When I was in advertising, especially with a big agency, you're working with clients that J&Js of the world, the Nestle's of the world.
The bureaucracy, it's like moving a huge vessel in the middle of the ocean.
So it would take you months to sell in a campaign. And then by the time you sold in the campaign, it would take months to make the campaign. And then think about, by the time it finally actually launches, it's out of date.
Yeah.
It's like, that's old news already. So I like the immediacy and sort of the instant gratification of working with like startups. And then I met my co-founder.
What industries did you go into?
A lot of tech,
agnostic?
actually. It just happened that way. And then one client led to another, it was just kind of that thing. And so I was working with a lot of B2B and tech. And then I met my co-founder, James, who'd been working on our hair care formulas for about 10 years. He's married to a Japanese man. He lives here in New York City. Masahiro is, oh my God, an amazing human. I love you, Masa. But he's very zen. James is a very intense person, a very passionate person, and Masa kind of calms him, and he's very zen. And Masa grew up in Atsushi, Japan, which is where the tsunami actually flattened in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was in 2011. That was that long ago.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Unless I have the date wrong, but I could be wrong. It's fact check me on that one. But everything basically, except this is a weird thing. I actually went there in 2019, and the only thing that had been left standing was this temple in the bay. Not the only thing, but like most of the buildings and the town was destroyed.
It's freaky how that happens.
2011.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
And this little rickety temple in the bay was left standing. I'm like, that's so strange, but whatever. So the people in Atsushi grew up in a just very different, much healthier. I mean, you've heard about the blue zones, these
over 100 years old, and how many people are there. Yeah.
So Japan has blue zones. And so it's the food they eat. It's the whole lifestyle.
The whole thing, yep.
And one of the things that Masa has educated us on is like, we eat like avocados here every day. They would eat this seaweed, mekabu. And it's like the nutrient-dense part of wakame seaweed. Wakame is like miso soup, and sushi, we all know seaweed now because, right? And they would also powder it down, grind it up, like dry it and put it in their skincare and hair care. And when I went there and met Masa's family, Masa also looks incredible, but his mother, who's in her 80s, I swear she looks like my age. I mean, she like
Amazing what a little bit of seaweed could do for you.
Oh my God. Like His whole family, like so the idea of the makabu was that it acts like a sponge for your hair to bring hydration botanically. And the beauty of that is when it took us a long time to figure out how to do it. But when you add it into the formulas, we add it in as a powder. We get it from a local seaweed company who we went and visited and did a deal with. They only do food grade seaweed. They harvest it. It's all fair trade, like that whole thing. But when you put it in the hair care products, you get the hydration, but you don't get the weight, because a lot of products, if you were to buy a moisturizing or hydrating shampoo or conditioner, it's going to solve that, but it's going to give you other issues. Your hair's going to look greasy. It's going to be flat. You're going to be unhappy with, you're going to have to wash it more often because you're going to feel like it's,
greasy and dirty.
Yeah. But it's not. But so we wanted to solve hydration because that's usually the root of most people's hair issues. But we wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't have that effect. And this was the answer. It just took a while to get there.
So what was it about meeting him and working with him that you said, you know what, I'm done with consulting. This is where I want to go?
So my husband had introduced me because he was actually working in advertising as a producer. He spent 20 years at Clairol and did a lot of their hair care. I had worked on L'Oreal's hair care. So we both had this history in beauty and hair. And my husband had said to me, I have this guy, I don't know beauty, but he's got the stuff he's doing. Can you just meet with him? I did a big eye roll because my husband has introduced me to many people he was in advertising too over the years. And I've hired several of them and had to fire, I think, every single one. Because my husband's more of like, he likes someone because he can go have a beer with them, but doesn't mean they're actually good at their job. Sorry, Bill.
It's all right, Bill. We all fall victim to that.
So anyway, I developed a healthy degree of skepticism when it came to his recommendations. And when he was like, oh, can you just meet with him? Do me a favor. So I'm like, okay, fine. But I'm going to just have him over for dinner because I got to kill two birds with one stone and I got shit to do. And I'm just going to I can't go out and spend time. So we invited him and Masa over for dinner. We were living the Upper East Side at the time. They came over. I had two dogs. My dogs love them. And my dogs are not easy. I have a little...
Judgmental dogs?
My little one is especially difficult. He's a Chiweenie. He was a rescue. He doesn't like anyone. He likes me and sometimes my husband and sometimes my daughter. And he loves my daughter, but that's it. My son, he loves my son, but my son, is out and about, but that's it. So when they came in and immediately my dogs loved them, I knew they were good people. And so from there, we literally just ended up
hitting it off.
We got on like a house on fire. They were sharing all of the stuff they've done. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. I still was skeptical about the actual product because I've worked in the category and it's not easy. And I'm thinking, how can this guy come up with something good? I mean, he's one dude. Yeah, he's got Masa helping him with the ingredient, but he's formulating it like, really? And
what's his background?
So he had worked in creative production at Clairol for a long time, but he's not a formulator. He's got a great intuition about ingredients. But he's not a chemist. So we had a chemist that does our formulations in Chicago that he'd been working with for years. So we got on great, but I'm like, all right, he gave me the products to try and I'm thinking I'm going to have to let him down gently, and just give him some feedback and that's it. But I tried the products and I was like, oh my God, these are unbelievable. How did you do this? Like, this is crazy. So then I was like, he's a genius. Because I was thinking also, who does this for 10 years and spends all their time and money on something for that long? You either have to be like never satisfied and difficult, like somebody that's never going to be getting to the end game, or you just are onto something and you just took that long to get it right. And I think that was the case. So needless to say, I was converted. And so we decided to go into business together because he had formulas. He didn't have anything else. He didn't have a brand. He didn't have any idea of what to do with them. obviously my background is branding, commercializing a business, figuring all that out. So it's actually been a perfect partnership.
So you build it, I sell it.
Yes,
kind of like that.
Kind of. I mean, he built it in the sense of the formulas, although we did clean them up a little bit more. And then we did a lot of testing. And then I basically have created the go-to-market strategy, just a lot of the other things we're doing and some of the line extensions we're doing and all that. So it does work pretty well. I find that when you can partner with someone where you're not overlapping like what you think your superpowers are, it works way better. Sometimes people find somebody that they just love and are aligned with, but they're too similar. And I've seen that happen a lot.
No yin and yang. They're both yings or both yangs.
They're both yings or they're both yangs. And then they end up clashing because inevitably there's going to be some disagreement about something. They both think they know better.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends up being a disastrous partnership as opposed to I respect what you do.
Yeah.
You respect what I do. We don't try to, we will align on the values of the brand, which is that was the most important thing to me when we launched. Let's nail down our values, our purpose, our mission. And if we can get that set and we both agree, then there's not going to be like, well, I want to launch a snack bar with, seaweed. And I'm going to go, what? Because we already have decided this is what our brand is about. And so that made it a lot easier. So now, yeah, it's we don't have those issues. The biggest challenges right now are not internal challenges. They're more launching a business, scaling a business when you are self-funded and you don't have investors and you're trying to grow and build and you're super scrappy and, there's only so much of our own money we want to keep piling in, right? There's a point where you have to say the business has to stand on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And we're about at that point, which I'm really happy about. It's taken a while to get here, but I think we're now finally at the point where I feel like the business is self-sustaining, knock on wood. And a lot of founders don't understand that. So part of what I love doing is working with other founders and helping mentor. And a lot of them don't know marketing. A lot of them don't know business. And sometimes they think, a lot of them naively think that if they just create something great, it'll sell itself, which is like so far from the truth.
Yeah.
Or if they just put it out on a website or they put it on Amazon, people will come and find it. And I'm like, oh poor thing. You have no idea.
It's insane how, people view overnight successes or people who have kind of made it through the I would say the drudgery of starting a business. And they don't realize the actual time that it took from when they first started the idea or concept to when they actually became successful and what it is that they went what happened in between those two times.
There are very few overnight successes, to your point. There are a few in beauty, which is why I think people have this illusion that it can happen. But first of all, a lot of times the founders have backing. For one reason or another, they're either connected, they are a really attractive young founder that just, you can kind of make the face of the brand. They are a celebrity. They're an influencer. There's a lot of reasons why somebody's going to get backing. And then it's a lot easier, obviously, to scale fast. Most of us are not in that category. My son had to tell me, he didn't have to tell me, both my son and my daughter, actually, getting back to our earlier conversation about Instagram and savviness and social and all that, they kind of said to me in a very direct way, Mom, you should not be on your social media channels. Nobody wants to see a 57-year-old, touting your product. And I kind of was like, but people want to know the founder story. And they're like, no, they really don't.
How'd that make you feel?
I mean, it's hard because I get it. I don't disagree with them. I spent years, there's a reason you put Matthew McConaughey in Wild Turkey, right? Aspiration, like there's a reason for that and not the CMO of Campari. But so I totally understand what they're saying. But so what I actually have done is I've figured out, okay, they're not wrong. There's a place for things. So I actually have dialed back my own presence on Instagram and somewhat on TikTok.
So what are you doing in lieu of that?
UGC, influencer content. But I do still post a lot on YouTube where it's more educational, on LinkedIn where it's appropriate. You know what I mean? So I've kind of been better about figuring some of that out.
So you said that the business is now, knock on wood, at a spot where it can be self-sustaining. I guess my question to you is, what does that look like what do you see for the business moving forward? Do you see the potential for going for outside money? Is that something that's in your peripheral, or are you going to slowly grow this, or what's the plan?
I look at this as a marathon, not a sprint. And so I would be open to an investor if it's the right type of investor. But to be fair, I also really don't want to have to answer to anyone. I'm too old. I don't have the patience. Also, I found I met with a lot of investors early on, and a lot of them just don't know beauty, right? So they give you weird advice, and you're like, okay, clearly you have no idea what this category is all about. And I don't want to spend my time having to educate somebody who's second guessing what I'm doing. I'd rather make mistakes and own them on my own dime and my own, you know what I mean? And then it's like, it is what it is.
Is the plan to build its brand, the brand that stands on its own? Or are you looking for potentially an opportunity to be acquired by a bigger company? Like what's in the...
Yeah, I think ultimately acquisition, but I'm okay if that's 10 years out.
Okay.
Because I want to build something that I feel like is a solid, strong, clear, sustainable brand. And I also want to make sure we're very values-based, so we care about sustainability. We created the MASAMI Institute to give back to ocean research. That's a whole story about how we found this one guy who was diving in the bay in Atsushi, back to Atsushi, and realized that the ecosystem had gotten completely out of whack by the tsunami, and he single-handedly fixed it. So we give him money, and so not a lot. I mean, we're small, so it's all relative, but that's important to us. And the big corporations, yes, they do things, but they're not as invested in it. They're not as passionate about it. It's sometimes something that they do because they feel they have to. So I really want to not just build my business, but try to make change in the beauty industry to make it I always say, make the beauty industry more beautiful, because the beauty industry is not beautiful.
It's an ugly place.
It's an ugly place. It's very dirty from the sense of sustainability. Packaging, most beauty packaging is not recyclable or sustainable. People don't realize pumps are bad. Pumps are really hard to recycle. So almost always they end up in the landfill because they have lots of component parts. Mm-hmm. And you have to break those apart to get to recycle, and they don't do that. So they end up in landfill. We had this dilemma when we launched our brand because customers kept asking us for pumps I should have brought my products for show and tell. We have these 10-ounce shampoo and conditioners with a little screw top, and people kept asking us for pumps. And that's one of those things that, okay, do you listen to your consumers and do something because they are asking and they want it? Or do you stick to your guns and say, no, it's not sustainable? And so I said, okay, we're going to offer the pumps, but I'm going to make people pay for them. Because if they pay for them, first of all, then they have to really want them. And then I can take the money that I'm getting from the pumps and I can use that to offset our plastic footprint.
Okay.
And at least that feels like it's a middle ground. But people always give me crap about it. They're like, why do we have to pay for those? I'm like, because we are a sustainable brand. Then you have to explain.
Do they reuse them?
You can reuse the pumps.
Yeah. So that's, now you're forced to reuse them as opposed
if you
to just
bought
getting
them,
your free
right.
one.
Hopefully you won't throw it out. You'll just, right. But like people don't think about it. They don't realize it. So it's like left to us little teeny tiny brands to do that education, which I'm happy to do, but it's a lot. And that's a big part of why I launched the Conscious Beauty Collective, because at least if I have 50 brands doing that education, we can make a dent as opposed to my little teeny tiny brand on our own, because we all share the same values. We all give back. We're all fair trade, vegan, cruelty-free, either we have certifications, or we're not necessarily certified because that can be expensive, but we believe in these things.
So do you join like a collective? Like or is it just networking, or how do you identify with the other brand
Yeah.
leaders?
So when I started this Conscious Beauty Collective, I had reached out to a few brands I'd worked with during COVID, because we started doing that out of pragmatism when we launched, because we launched at New York Fashion Week right before COVID, February 2020. Yeah. And then I got cancer in 2021. So it was sort of like I couldn't get out there and do all this stuff. So we had to do a lot of digital marketing, partnerships. So I had reached out to a bunch of the brands I'd worked with that were clean like mine and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this collective. We're going to do pop-ups. We're going to do co-marketing. They were like, great. And then most of the other brands that have come along are brands that have been recommended, like word of mouth. And now we vet them. We have a certification process. I have one of my brands in the collective, and this is the beauty of the collective, is everyone has different superpowers. So she's actually a formulator. So she's my partner in figuring out the certifications, and she vets all the ingredients, because I'm not a chemist. I can tell you what the EU approves or not, but I can't tell you, So she does that part of it, and then I vet their values. Like, do they actually walk the walk and do what they say? Are they independently owned? That's important. We don't want to support big corporations, and, we're here to help the small businesses. So that's what we do. And so, yeah, the brands that join are all kind of the same values. And then we try to give people a platform to talk about some of this education. So actually today, after this, I'm headed to Brooklyn to Remedies, the herb shop.
Yep.
And we're going to do a whole event around what is conscious beauty, because people don't really know what that means. They've heard clean beauty. Well, clean beauty usually means formulas. Conscious beauty it's about clean formulas. And to us, that means EU standard, because that's way more rigorous than the US. But it also means that you're sustainably minded, that you give back to the community, that you are, as I mentioned before, vegan, cruelty-free, or fair trade minded. It's beyond just your actual formulations. It's your entire business model. And that's important. And so I think once people start to realize, okay, that's higher bar, hopefully that starts to force other brands and bigger brands to start to act differently as well.
So now how do you communicate that? Because I'm sure that's a big part of your branding strategy and your method of attracting and retaining new customers, is the fact that you're identifying these as a global issue that you guys are looking to be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. What is that in your brand strategy?
So we started doing a certification seal that people can use on their packaging and their marketing on their products to help signal that brand meets all those criteria. So that's one way. The other way is just doing all these events, doing live streaming, doing social content, just putting out, we do blog posts, we do interviews with other founders. We do a lot of that, because that's how you really start to tell the story. I do a ton of podcasts, because it's a way to tell a deeper story. The problem is we get back to the change in advertising. People have the attention span that's actually shorter than that of a goldfish.
It's terrible, especially these days.
Yes. And that's actually true. So the problem is you can only get one quick soundbite on Instagram or on, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you have to get them right away.
Yeah. And usually, you can't get that deeper story. You're hooking them in with, what's it going to do for me? Do I want shiny hair? And so to get the deeper story, you have to find these other longer form content places where you can hook them in. And then once they're in, we have a great email strategy where we try to do a lot of that in email. So once people sign on, they get inundated with stuff they maybe didn't want to hear about, but now they know about. But that's what you got to do.
Forced education.
Yeah, so, but it's not easy. And, a lot of the founders will say to me, like, what's the silver bullet? I'm like, oh my God, there's no silver bullet. You have to do it all. What? Yes, you have to do it all. Like, if you are trying to move the needle, that's what it takes. And if you don't have the ability to do it yourself, then guess what? You got to hire people. I mean, there are lots of solutions. I find good people on Fiverr. I use my daughter. My business is very family. My daughter, who's really talented artist and designer, although she hates when I talk about her like that, but she is. She helps me with a lot of stuff. I have my niece now helping me with a bunch of things. My brother does my fulfillment. He's incredible. Oh my God, if I didn't have him, the whole thing would fall apart. So, you just basically find people that can do things that you need, that are good at them and want to do them. And it's a mutually beneficial relationship, hopefully, so that it sticks. And that's what we do. But it's not easy. And you got to have a lot of stamina.
So if we can kind of just pull back, we had briefly touched upon you and James being partners.
Yeah.
What were some of the conversations that you guys had that helped you get to the point where you're like, you know what? Yeah, this is going to work? Because I know that you said you talked a little bit about defining your core values and going through some sort of a exercise to make sure that you identified your sandboxes and where each one of you, I guess, made decisions. But I'd love to hear how that unfolded when the light bulb went off, and from when the light bulb went off to when you actually said, you know what, let's sign some documents and become actual partners.
Yeah, I think it was a series of conversations. It was literally sitting down and having the conversations people don't like to have. You have to contingency plan. What happens if I get hit by a bus? What happens if he gets hit by a bus? Does Masa take over the business? Does Bill take over the business? Ooh, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to kind of think that stuff through, because if you don't, look, I got cancer a year later. You know what I mean? That could have ended very differently for me. And the type of cancer I had a shockingly like the worst outcome of any breast cancer. And I made the mistake of Googling it
worst thing you could do.
Worst thing I could do. And I was like, this is really bad. Luckily, my cancer responded to chemo. I have friends that died from their breast cancer. It didn't work for them. So it's no guarantee. But that's the truth for any of us, right? I could be driving back in the city and get in an accident.
Yeah, we call it the 4 Ds. So you've got death, divorce, departure, and disability. So it's like, one of those 4 things that might happen to you. How does the business continue to operate? But from the angle of understanding that you guys were almost finishing each other's sentences, that you were the right partner fit.
Yeah.
What were some of the conversations that you guys had?
Yeah. So it was really around the values, the type of business we wanted to create, the outcome that we were looking to create, the expectations around what it would take, the amount of money that we were willing to put in.
Did you have any non-negotiables coming into this that he checked the box that he met?
He had a failed business before. He had tried to do a hair care brand once before, and it didn't work. It wasn't clean at the time, and it was years before. And I think that was a good thing, because I think he'd learned a really tough lesson. And, I think when you can sort of align on some of that. So he was probably more willing to listen to me because of that, and because of his bad experience, versus if he would have come in starry-eyed and, So I think we just really had a lot of those conversations around. It's almost like when you're dating, you need to be really upfront, and you need to have some uncomfortable conversations, like I said, around money. People don't always like to talk about that.
What was the most uncomfortable part of that conversation?
Just kind of really understanding where he was and what he was able to do, and then where I was and what I was able to do or willing to do. And then, Bill had a vote. Masa had a vote, they're weighing into, and us all kind of coming to a common place where we all felt like, okay, we think we can make this work. Now, of course, along the way, we've had to revisit some of that because things happen that we didn't plan on. So suddenly it was like, we need more money. Are we willing to put in a little more money? Yeah, we did. But then there's a point where you have to say, okay, we've already kind of gone above and beyond. Now we have to sort of draw the line. Luckily, again, we're at a place where I think the business is self-sustaining. If it wasn't, and we were still putting more money in, we would be having those really tough conversations about, okay, because we never wanted to get investors. We wanted to, in the beginning, explore it as an option. But once we started to meet with them and realized they don't seem like the right place for us, we might have been willing to revisit it if we had to. If it was like, we're either going to close the business or we're going to get an outside investor, then those are the choices. Then
Now, would you go like friends and family round? Has that been the conversation, or has it been more outside money?
I think it would be more outside money. We don't have tons of rich friends that are willing to give us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we have lots of friends that have supported us, and we love them and thank them for that. And in lots of ways. But yeah, so we would be looking for more of a proper investor, but we're not at that point, thank God, because that would be a tough conversation and a tough decision.
Do you regret going out and being on your own at any point?
Not at all. You know, part of it is just having worked in the corporate environment for so long. I loved it until I didn't. It would be really hard for me, especially at my age, to go back and work for someone. Because when you have an investor, you essentially have a boss. So the idea of having to answer to someone, no, thank you. I'd rather own my mistakes. And I make plenty of them, you know, but I'd rather feel like, okay, I know this wasn't going to work out. And like, if this whole Conscious Beauty Collective thing goes belly up because, you know, none of these stores work out, great, fine. I own it. We tried it, you know. But so far, it hasn't been the case. But I would not go back to corporate worlds. It would take a lot to drag me back. I also now, this is the huge benefit for me with my own business, is my lifestyle. My husband and I spent 2 weeks in Bordeaux in July. We were in Paris for 3 weeks in August. We're going, after this trip, I'm going back to California, and then we're going to be in Bologna for 3 weeks. We're thinking of potentially buying an apartment there.
Sounds terrible.
Sounds terrible.
Yep.
It's the culinary capital of Italy. I'll probably gain 50 pounds.
I leave tomorrow for Italy. So excited.
Okay, yeah. I love Bologna. So anyway, but I'm not doing these things as like I'm checked out of the business. It's the opposite. I'm in Paris working out of the Parisian apartment doing my social media. Because I can.
Right.
I'm not tethered to a desk. And I couldn't do that if I was working in my old job.
So if I asked you, right, close your eyes, go back to when you were at the moment that you had figured it out from a partnership, from a core values, from a direction of the company and everything that you guys were looking at in terms of the roadmap that you put together, what has been the different iterations that have popped up? Kind of like the V2, V3, because just, you know, you being small, you can pivot, you're more nimble. What are the shifts in the business that you've taken since since origination that you can say have been momentous to some degree?
Okay, so shift number one was throwing out my business plan because of COVID, couldn't get into salons. So really focusing on DTC, customers, influencers. And that was good because that's good base for any business these days anyway. Mm-hmm. Then I would say shift number two was...
So COVID was a shift for you? That's weird. We haven't heard that before.
I know, right? Shocking. Shocking. But it was our timing of launching right then. Like we actually never implemented our original plan. Yeah. It just didn't happen. So, okay. But then
I just envisioned you sitting in a room with a stack full of papers, getting the news and throwing up the papers and be like, okay, back to the drawing board.
It really was like that because a few weeks before we were sitting in crowded New York City fashion shows where the people were packed in like sardines. And I'm like, so it was a little bit of does not compute for a month or two. And then I'm like, okay, now it computes. Okay, now I get it. But anyway, that was number one. Number two would be the Conscious Beauty Collective has been a really huge shift for us because we are filling a void. A lot of these small indie brands don't have any way beyond online to get their business or their products or their brand out in the real world. And so many of our products need people to touch, feel, smell. Mm-hmm. That's really important for beauty. TikTok only goes so far. Mm-hmm. Yes, it can really put you on the map. But so that has been huge, huge. And I can anticipate in a year from now, us having 25 to 30 of these pop-ins. Right now we have 6. So we'll see what happens there. And then I would say the other big change has been in our product offering because when we launched, we had shampoo, conditioner, styling cream, and a shine serum. Great products, small line. We purposely designed them to work for virtually every hair type and texture, because I do not believe in the way the beauty market has grown, especially at mass retail, is big brands like L'Oreal are all about securing shelf space. Well, how do you secure shelf space? You launch more SKUs. How do you launch more SKUs? Well, now we're going to tell you that you need one for hydration. This shampoo's for hydration. This one's for color treated hair. This one's for healthy hair. This one's for damaged hair. This one's, why choose? I used to stand there as a customer, even though I worked in the category. I would stand at the shelf for 20 minutes going,
which one do I pick?
This is so frustrating. I want all of them.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to choose. And so we purposely made a product that does all of those things. You don't have to choose. It's one product. It does it all. You don't. And I know some people are skeptical, but then they try it and they're like, oh, they get it. So when we launch, we have a very small line. And I really thought, okay, we're going to focus on this. And then maybe we'll launch out into body wash, body care. We'll see. But what we've actually done instead is we launched a hair towel last year. I partnered with a female-owned textile company called Once Again Home. Shout out to Carrie. Love her. She's in Chicago. And she had just launched hair towels. She makes them out of plastic bottles. So they fit our story, our mission, sustainable, small business. And she did custom branded hair towels for us and people love them. And I first just did them as a little, I'm going to send them to our best customers as a thank you. So I did that. But then people started buying them and they've literally like become a top seller. Then I was like, oh, this is interesting. I didn't really think that the hair towel would do so well. So we ended up ordering a ton of them, selling them. Then I'm like, well, wait, maybe I should do a scalp scrubber. Same thing. We launched a scalp scrubber and now that's like our top seller. And what it made me realize is that it's an easier entry into our business because you don't have to think. A lot of people are skeptical about the whole, like, it's going to work for my hair. Even though we say, try it, you'll see, they're like, everyone thinks their hair's different. Mm-hmm. Every single person, my hair's unique. My hair's, no, I hear this all the time. Trust us, you're not that different. But like, it's a lot easier to get somebody to buy a scalp scrubber for $15 and love it than to get them to buy my $38 shampoo. Mm. And then they're not sure how to use it because it doesn't foam up because it's no sulfates, it's a low foam. And then, it's just different experience. And so that has been eye-opening. And that, so we're now kind of looking to extend the business around a whole hair system because really that's what it is. And not just the actual, the juice, the stuff in the bottle.
Yeah.
So I would never have anticipated that happening.
So that's the next version of the business.
Yeah. Is really focusing on extending that side out because that really is how it's been growing. And every time we get a new customer via they bought a hair scrubber, we'll eventually get them to try the other products.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just a different way in.
It's that monkey's
but it's
paw,
an easier way
grab.
in. It's an easier way in than hitting them over the head with the shampoo story over and over. So yeah. That was, and so now I also coach a lot of the other brands and skincare brands. It's like, why don't you have a skincare applicator? Why don't you have a gua sha? Why don't you, there's so many things you could add to your skincare products that make the whole thing work better and, easier way in based on my learning. So. Yeah.
So through all of this learning, what are maybe the top 2 or 3 things that have kind of kept you up at night that you've struggled through that have been weighing on?
Oh gosh. Number 1 is cash flow, because when you're in a business that is physical products, every time we need more inventory, $50,000. Doesn't matter what it is, $50,000. It's just a lot. So if you don't plan your business to be able to do that.
So how do you go from 6 pop-ins to 33 pop-ins and be able to sustain that cash flow for inventory purchasing?
The pop-ins are different because all the brands contribute and participate. So those are a lot easier to scale.
Okay.
The inventory is a bigger challenge because when I get a big order from a wholesaler or online and suddenly we just are almost out of our full-size shine serum, but I'm using that opportunity to change our packaging because we're currently in plastic and I want to move that to a glass bottle. It's taking longer than I want because I'm not finding exactly what I want and I want to get the right thing. I don't want to just buy something to do it. So that's a situation where we didn't quite plan correctly because we're going to be out of that. But I still have the Travel Shine serums. And that's why I'm like, I'm still, if you really are wanting that product, you can still get it.
So do you go glass bottle and then have those low plastic refills? Is that what's the thought process
Well,
there?
glass is just a better, it's more recyclable and sustainable. So that's just better. I haven't thought about doing the refills because that's a whole thing. Do you put it in a pouch? Do you have a little insert? Like, how do you do that? But that'll be the next step because we do have refill pouches for our shampoo. We have the big sustainable bottles that are 32 ounce. They're ceramic. They're beautiful. So our hardcore loyalists have those and love them. And then they just buy the refill pouches and that's great. It's hard to get people to migrate for a lot of reasons. People don't like to be hooked in, the bottles don't fit in their shower, whatever. There's lots of reasons, but
it's interesting because even though it's almost low risk because it's not like buying a car. It's like you said, $38 shampoo. If you're in the market for a $38 shampoo, you're probably able to afford it.
Yeah.
To think that you're hooked in on something that's low risk is just a mindset, right?
It's completely a mindset. Because that's the other thing I have to educate around is the value equation. Because sometimes people will say, I even had a really good friend tell me, I'm not buying it because it's expensive and she can afford it. Trust me. I'm like, what? I don't know. I've just never spent that much on a shampoo. And she just will go and buy the grocery store,
Right.
It's $5 shampoo. And I had to.
Meanwhile, you're like, it's so noisy. Where are you? Oh, I'm getting my $15 latte from Starbucks.
100%. That's why I'm like, so this is what I've had to tell people. First of all, the product you're using has toxins in it. Do you need me to explain all the stuff you're putting in your on your scalp, which is it's one of the most absorbent parts of your body? I will read to you. Just Google this stuff. Don't take my word. A lot of these are banned in the EU, but you're putting them on your body. Number one. Number two, we use super high quality ingredients that are really, really good. And therefore, our products are really nutrient dense and thick and salon quality. You don't have to use a lot. You can use like this much of the of the shampoo versus this much of what you're using now. And then third, if you use our shampoo, especially, but the shampoo and conditioner, you can reduce washing your hair to less than once a week and it will look great every day. And people are like, they kind of find it funny that I'm telling people to use less product, but it's true. Some people get 6 months out of that little bottle. So I'm like, if you really did the math on, how you're using the product, you're getting more out of that actually than buying your bigger bottle that's cheaper, but you're burning through it. So
that's a whole nother education for customer base that you have to go through.
It's true with most conscious beauty products are like that, where the ingredients are really high quality. You don't have to use as much. They work really well. Not everything works. Sometimes people are skeptical that clean products don't work well, but I tell you these days, clean products, most of the ones that we have work better. So better than conventional products. So people just have to get in it and use it. But don't listen to me. Go online, do your own research.
So what are the best 3 decisions that you think you've made through this process of when you started to when you're to where you are today?
Oh my gosh, the best 3 decisions.
I don't know. I'm using 3, but it could be 1, it could be 4, it could be 27.
Okay, getting my brother involved, even though there are days when he hates it. But that was genius because he's really good at what he does. And he's just a voice of reason. I would say the Conscious Beauty Collective, launching that was unbelievable for us, really, because it's a community of founders that beyond just the actual stuff we do in the stores, you have a support system, you have people you can bounce stuff off of.
Now, how'd you start that?
That was when I was going through my chemo for my breast cancer, and I was trying to think about how to focus what I do in the business because I knew I couldn't do it all. I had to prioritize. And I realized the brand partnerships that I'd done because I had to during COVID.
Because it's almost like a mastermind, like the best in business, kind of like a collection of different ideas coming together. It's
yeah. No, we share a lot. We have master classes every month where we'll talk about things like SEO. Because again, every founder comes in with different perspective, different superpowers. We have 2 or 3 founders that were lawyers. They come in and they share their perspective on MOCRA, the new modernization of Cosmetic Product Act and what we have to do. Just people have different things they bring to the table. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of sharing. We do a lot of sharing of, don't use this partner. This one's terrible. This one's great. Like that kind of stuff too. It's super valuable. It saves people a lot of time, a lot of angst,
almost like
a lot
an
of money.
Angie's List component to it.
You're like a Yelp.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you're not sharing ideas, then you really don't have the support that you need, because as well as anybody, going at this it's hard. It feels like you're alone most of the time. Even when you have partners, there's certain, you're playing your own sandbox. You have certain problems that you can bring to a partner that may not be the right person to talk to. And then it's like, all right, do I have a coach? Do I have a mentor? Do I have,
exactly.
Where do I lean on? And to have a collective like that, to where you can pose a question to a group and you can hear, the different perspectives. That's huge.
And honest perspectives. Because, a lot of times, I get hit up, and probably most founders do, 10 emails a day, digital marketing agencies, SEO agencies, Amazon agencies. We're going to 10x your business, And I've had people present to us, but it's all BS. Like they're presenting a narrative that they want you to buy into. Mm-hmm. When we do these as brands, it's unfiltered and honest. So we are very much like, okay, this was a disaster. This was great. May not work for you, but this is, and that is super valuable.
It's easy to sell somebody on everything when it goes right. It's harder to talk about when shit goes wrong or the shit hits the fan. What are the things that we're going to look to adjust or pivot when those things happen? And most of the time, those sales pitches are where everything is going to be is as utopia at the end of the rainbow. And we are the facilitator to get you from here to there.
Right. And then when it doesn't happen and you ask, well, okay, you told me I was going to get all this and it didn't happen. There's no answer usually. So it's frustrating.
Well, you never got the answer to the email that we had sent out to you 3 weeks ago. That would have been a huge component in the success of the overall outcome of this project. What?
Yeah. It's like, thanks. No, thanks.
So you're throwing it on an email I didn't answer. Okay.
We're running low on time, but I actually had 2 questions.
Yep.
Okay. So during our pre-interview, you had said that you're a learned extrovert.
That's
and I
true.
imagine as a business owner, you're out networking. You said, podcasts. How did you step out of your naturally introverted personality to accomplish all the things that you need to do as a business owner?
It was actually really painful. I was very early in my career in advertising. I was working in Chicago, and I had a boss who was a friend and is still a very good friend. And he made me do presentations, and I was absolutely terrified. And I had to do a presentation to the American Express clients, and there were probably 100 of them. And I shit the bed royally. It was one of the worst things you've ever seen. I turned bright red. I couldn't remember what I was supposed to talk about. I stammered. I could barely get the words out because I was like, and I literally wanted to shrink afterwards. Like people wouldn't look me in the eye. It was so bad. And so the next day I said to him, I'm so sorry. And he goes, for what? And I'm like, that was terrible. And he goes, oh, don't worry. You're going to do it again next week. Yeah, that was my reaction. And I'm like, no. I said, you can't. And he goes, that's how you're going to learn. You're going to be better. He goes, I don't care if you're bad. This is learning and you're going to be better. And that's how I learned. And it sucked because I did have horrible presentations, but having somebody who understands and supported, like other people would have said, okay, we can't have her ever present again. She'll put her in the corner, let her do her thing. Don't put her in front of clients. And he did the opposite. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know, I might not have been able to get confident enough to do it.
No, I can almost imagine that took a tremendous amount of energy. Does it still take a lot of energy for you to be in those circumstances, or have you found it to be a little bit more?
Now it's easy, but it took years. Now it's very easy because you do it. It gets to be rote. It gets to be second nature. Now I can talk about anything. I don't care. I'm like, it's all good. I've done keynotes. I don't care, but it took a long time for me to get to that point. And so I have a lot of empathy for my daughter, who's 21, who has anxiety, and she's a little on the spectrum, and she's has a hard time with some of these issues too, because I get it. And she's now learning like small steps to put herself out there and do things to, you just got to make yourself a little uncomfortable and it sucks. But then the reward is great, you know?
Speaking of energy, you had also said that you can run in circles around your kids.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
So what do you do mentally or physically and or spiritually to keep your energy levels so high?
I don't know if there's anything specific that I do. I just am wired this way. And it's also one of the reasons, like my husband has had to get used to the idea that I'm not going to retire. Because when I left the business, he left the business and he's retired. And I think there was a while that he really wanted me to just hang out and do that too. But I would go stir crazy after 2 days. Like I just can't. And so
is part of your happy medium being able to go and work remotely and go overseas and enjoy
for sure.
Traveling?
100%. And yeah, exactly. And that's sort of how we found that balance, because that way we're getting the hedonistic stuff that we enjoy, but we're also doing the work that I enjoy. And if I'm not busy, there's something wrong. I literally, and it's just, maybe it's like a flaw in my personality but you know, do you know the love languages? So I'm 100% acts of service. I could care less about gifts. I could care less about praise, a little bit of physical touch. What's the other one? Quality time. Yeah, quality time's nice if I'm doing something.
Recognition.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
So like my husband is quality time. And once we kind of realize that, so that's why he just wants to hang out. And I'm like, what are you doing for me? Take the garbage out, you know, like do something.
So wait, what is your love language, you said?
Acts of service.
What is that? I don't know what that one is.
That is like doing stuff. I appreciate it when somebody like literally, like when my husband says like, I'm going to call the insurance company and deal with that. And he actually does it. That means so much more to me than buying me flowers, saying something nice. I could care less.
My wife is the same way. And we talk about this because the love languages is one of the things that I often bring up. And you know, she's like, remember, I'm acts of service.
Yeah.
And I'm like, meanwhile, I could do 100 things that was for the benefit of your life. But if I don't do that one act of service, I'm in the doghouse forever. And she goes, not forever, just until you go and
until you do it.
Until you go and do it.
I'm like that too. Yeah, no, he gets actually going through that and understanding your love language is very helpful.
Yeah.
Because, you know, once you know that about yourself and then you know your partner is this. And so sometimes I have to actively be like, okay, Bill just needs quality time. I'm going to force myself to do nothing today, even though it's torture.
Well, it's funny because sometimes it's really good to just be introspective and really learn about who you are, how you tick, how you can relate to others. But sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Because it actually build some head trash and it prohibits you from moving in the right direction.
Yeah, true.
And I think it's a healthy balance. I don't know if there's quite the right answer in either direction.
Yeah, I don't know either. And it's just, I've just come to accept that this is just the way I am. Like, I'm not changing. I'm too old. It's just, the clay is dry.
I love how you're 57. You're not even that much older than Jess or me. And but
it is what it is, you know.
Come on, we're not that old.
I feel like I'm 30 in my head, but the reality is, I mean...
Come on, Janet Jackson, age ain't nothing but a number.
It's all good.
It's all good. So listen, I really appreciate the time that we spent today. You coming in, especially from California. You just so happened to be in New York, so it was great that we were able to catch you. How can our listeners find you if they want to learn more about you or the products or where you're popping up next or what's going on in the beauty industry?
So I'm super easy to find. Obviously LinkedIn, and I will answer if you ping me, unless you're going to 10x my business, then I'm not going to answer. But yeah, LinkedIn. You can find me in any social channel. My personal is Lynn Power, and my business is Love MASAMI Hair everywhere. And then our website is lovemasami.com. And if you ping me on there, and you can see in the footer, there's some tabs for Conscious Beauty Collective. So you can learn more about it there.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you. Lynn Power,
Yay.
Season 2, episode 6. That's a wrap.